Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Jurassic World set to take a look at. Another set of figures that this time features two figures in the same pack. We've actually got more Epic Attack figures, which is really cool. Something that I actually have become kind of fond of. You know, at first there was a little iffy on the Epic Attack figures, but as time has gone on, I've definitely become a little bit more of a fan of them, and specifically, this is the one set I think I was most excited about outside of the Carnotaurus when it comes to the Epic Attack figures, because we have the Pachycephalosaurus versus Tyrannosaurus Rex set, and again, this is one of the Epic Attack sets. Unfortunately, this set is a little bit hard to come by currently. I don't know when it will begin showing up in the United States. Again, I think it will, I would imagine, but it's been out for a little while now, and we have not seen it here quite yet. So I did have my good friend Rod's Random Work pick this up for me and send it my way, and you know, if it for some reason decides not to show up here in the United States, at least I've already got it. But if it does show up, then great, I'm probably going to buy it again, because I really like the T-Rex that we have in this set. But you can see the figures are pretty much what they usually are when it comes to this type of Epic Attack figure. You know, you've got the little button there with the injury, and then you also have the area here that has kind of like an injury, but you can see inside to see like the mechanics of the figure. So it's a little bit of an eyesore as far as that side goes, but I don't think it takes much away from the figures, and both look really cool. Again, two really neat species to have entering the Epic Attack line, and unfortunately, I chose not to get the packaging with these because the figures are, you know, a little bit cheaper to ship if we just eliminate the packaging and make the box a little smaller. So we did ditch the packaging. Again, I'm more excited about the figures. I would have just tossed the packaging anyway. So I'm pretty happy to actually have these here. Been waiting a little while to finally find someone that had them in their area that could hook me up with them. And again, Rod stepped up and helped me out to acquire these. So let's jump to a closer look at both of these right now. So beginning with the Pachycephalosaurus, you can see we've got a pretty nice looking head sculpt here on the Pachycephalosaurus. Some really nice, really crisp detail as well, which is very nice to see. We've got a bluish tone there around the eye that kind of leaks down a little bit, and it also has kind of a glossy look to it. That entire blue area has a strong sort of satin shine to it. You can see the beak is also nicely sculpted out as well. You've got some more of the bumps and stuff that you would expect to see on the Pachycephalosaurus. We can also see the eye is painted very nicely, also has a black pupil, which is very, very nice to see. As you lead up here into the dome area of our Pachycephalosaurus, you can see a really nice light tone, extremely smooth transition as we lead up into that area, so they did a very nice job as far as that application of the paint goes. And this area also sports all the very nice fine detail you would expect to see. One thing that is pretty cool about this particular figure is we actually have a little bit of articulation up here, and that's something that most of the Epic Attack figures are lacking, is, you know, articulation in the head and neck area, whereas the Pachycephalosaurus does have a little bit of articulation, which helps to kind of get it into the position of, you know, that head-butting position you would want to see for a Pachycephalosaurus. So definitely a major plus as far as that goes. But as you lead back here into the back of the neck, you start to see a kind of greenish tone pick up, and it starts to sort of stripe and pattern and design here. As you move down, you can see it kind of striping down here into the side a little bit. You've also got more really nice scale details, some skin wrinkles as you move down here toward the throat. You can see the sculpt of the throat is very nicely done. There's also a nice speckling that is pretty present on this, you know, pretty abundant throughout the course of the figure, which is nice to just add a little extra variation of color to it. As you lead down here into the arms, you can see the arms are sculpted pretty nicely. We've got some nicely sculpted hands, no nail paint unfortunately, but doesn't look terrible by any means. And then as you lead up here into the side of the stomach, you see more of that kind of green coloration, like spotting and patterning here through. And unfortunately, it's a little bit cut up as far as that coloration goes, because you can see we have those slit-like injury areas there that give us the sound effects of the dinosaur. So, you know, it's kind of cutting up the, you know, spots and stuff, and I kind of think it's a little bit of an eyesore, but at the same time, because they've sculpted it out to sort of appear like an injury, it's not so bad. You know, Mattel did their best, I think, to kind of create these figures in a way where you have to have that sort of thing going on, but it doesn't take away from the figure very much. So I can give them props as far as that goes. You can also see we have a bit of a lighter tone starting to show up here in the stomach region. And if you flip the Pachy over, you can see we have that coloration pick up in the chest region. Run here along the underside until we get here almost into the tail, and it kind of tapers off again. So you do have a little extra color variation as far as that goes. You do continue to see more of that coloration here, that greenish color up here on the back of the Pachycephalosaurus, though it does begin to disappear as you lead out into the tail. As you lead down into the leg, though, you can see the muscle definition of the thigh is nicely done. We do have more of that coloration actually leading down into the thigh. It does disappear after that, but it's nice to see it lead down into that area. And I will say the sculpt and detail, of course, is very highly detailed throughout, but the leg specifically looks fantastic when it comes to the skin texture and how impressive and crisp that detail is. You do have some scoots running down the front of the leg, starting in the knee, running down all the way into the foot here of our Pachycephalosaurus. You can see, again, no painted nails, but the speckling is still quite abundant throughout. Very nice, impressive looking calf muscle as well as you lead up. And then you lead out here into the tail. You've got a really nice curve to the tail. Very elegant curve, I will say. And you have a much finer style of skin texture, I think, as you lead out. You still see kind of like larger scales leading along the spinal column, leading out into the tail. But as you move down here into the side, you can see a bit of a different look as far as the skin texture goes. And then, of course, you're going to see almost the same thing on the opposing side, except for the fact that we now have a different look for the, area here, where on the other side we had those slits that were, opened up. This side we have a button, and it does include some slits, but that's because when we push that, it's going to kind of light up and give us the look and appearance of an injury. You can also see the leg is trailing on this side, whereas the leg is leading on the initial side, and of course the tail curves toward us now. The articulation outside of the head and neck area, which I was pretty impressed with, also has some nice articulation in the arms, but we can only go forward and back. It does allow you to put the arms in a pretty nice naturalistic position, though, which is good. You also have articulation in the legs, which is actually a little bit stiff, but still works pretty nicely. And then, of course, a swivel tail on top of everything. And you'll have that same articulation here on the opposing limbs as well. So, pretty darn cool to have an epic attack version of the Pachycephalosaurus, and I must say it's pretty nice. And then we've got my favorite of the two in this set. We have the Juvenile Rex, which this is now... Oh man, I don't even know how many times we've had a Juvenile Rex in the Mattel line. Not too many, but this is probably about the 4th or 5th time we've had it, maybe even a little more. But you can see this one actually looks really cool. I am a pretty big fan of this one as a whole. I would probably say it's one of my favorite versions of this dinosaur to come out from Mattel so far. We again have some really nice looking skin texture here in the face, just like we saw in the Pachycephalosaurus. You can see the nostrils sculpted out. Nice greenish tone for the primary body color. We do have some pinkish tones there around the eye socket area, which is very nice to see. Something you do see on that particular dinosaur again in the Lost World Jurassic Park. You can also see a yellow eye with a big black pupil, again showing off the baby aspect to this figure, or juvenile, I guess you could say. You also have a lighter tone here for the lower jaw. You can see the teeth exposed there, and we can articulate the jaw, so we have that little area of articulation here on this figure. And as you lead into the mouth, look at how nice that tongue looks. That tongue sculpt looks absolutely awesome, if you ask me. Really nice texturing to it as well, and just generally I think looks a little bit better than what you usually see when it comes to a Mattel figure tongue sculpt. You can see the coloration ends there in the back of the throat. It doesn't run there up onto the upper jaw, but you can see again the detail is there. It does look nice. There is a really nice gloss coat though on the tongue, as well as the skin there on the inside of the mouth on the side. You can see the teeth are all sculpted pretty nicely as well. And they move, of course, around the entire jawline. They look good from every vantage point. No sloppiness or anything as far as that goes. And, of course, the jaw works really nicely. We do begin to pick up a darker variation of green up here on the top of the head, and that begins to kind of move down through the course of the body here as you move along, striping and designing through. You've got kind of like some tensing there in the neck for the Tyrannosaur. No articulation in the neck for this one, unfortunately. But the sculpting and detailing does look really good, and as you move down here into the underside of the neck and throat area, you can see that lighter tone does run down, but it does disappear as you reach into the chest, unfortunately. It would have been nice to see that run the entire way, but that's not the case. As you lead down further, you can see the arms are sculpted out very nicely. You've got some nice scoots down the fingers, nicely sculpted nails, no nail paint yet again, but still looks pretty decent. Of course, we have articulation in the arms, and both arms will articulate forward and back, which allows you to put them into the body, again, in a very nice naturalistic way. And just like with the Pachycephalosaurus, we have this open injury area here, and you can kind of see, like I said, the mechanics and stuff inside sort of shining through as we let the light hit it. But they did, I think, their best to sort of conceal that there with that injury kind of a look. You do have that greenish tone, again, run here along the back, but it does disappear pretty much in the hip region, and then we don't have any coloration leading out into the tail, which is very common when it comes to Mattel. And you can see as you lead down into the thigh, you have a little bit more of that darker green variation of color leading down. Big muscular looking thigh for sure. Really nice looking skin texture as you move down. There is a speckling on this one, just like we saw in the Pachycephalosaurus. Not quite as obvious, but you can really see it right here in this area. So it is pretty, visible here, just not everywhere. But as you move down, you've got the kneecap right there, nice calf muscle. Again, lots of variation as far as the scale, detail, and the skin texture. And then you move down into the foot, you've got some really nicely sculpted out toes, nice scoots down the toes, and again, the nails are sculpted pretty nicely, just no nail paint. You do have dew claws as well. And then you move up into the tail, and you have a nice looking curve as you lead out the length of the tail. Kind of curves up and then back down and then toward the dinosaur's right, which looks pretty good. Again, you also have articulation in the legs, just like you did with the Pachycephalosaurus. And then, of course, a swivel in the tail as well. And then as you turn the dinosaur around, you can see, just like with the Pachycephalosaurus, almost everything's the same, except the leg is leading on this side as opposed to the opposing leg there trailing. And then you, of course, have that injury area again, here where we have the button to press to give us the, light and sound effects for our T-Rex. And everything else pretty much looks exactly as you would expect it to be. We, of course, do, and I've got to try to pull these open, have the Jurassic Facts app codes for both if you would like to add them to your collection. There is the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and then the Pachycephalosaurus as well. So if you would like to add those to your collection, just in case they don't become something that's fairly easy to find here in the United States over time, or wherever you might live, these might help you to add them to your collection, because these ones so far have been pretty tricky to get a hold of. But definitely two really cool figures. I am super psyched to now have these in my collection, and definitely two figures that I must say are a very nice touch and nice addition to the Epic Attack line. As far as the action feature or sound feature or light feature, whatever you'd like to call it, goes, and of course, we get to hear what the T-Rex sounds like, but here we go. I like that they give you numerous different sounds. And of course, that light up feature works so good on these figures. Like, it perfectly illuminates the injuries on the dinosaur. If we light it up again, look how nice that looks. The only thing, like I have had numerous people say to me before, and I absolutely agree with, that would have been better to do with this would be that if you push the button, they light up, but they stay lit up until you push the button again, and then it would turn off, because that allows you to injure your dinosaur and leave the injury there, whereas now you push it and it just kind of fades away. Still really cool. And then, of course, we've got the Pachycephalosaurus. So definitely some really cool noises, some really nice light up effects for the figure as well. But if we can turn these lights back on, we can get an idea of the size of these figures. I would say it's a pretty safe bet to say that this is probably the largest Juvenile Rex that we've had so far. Lengthwise, you are looking at about 8 3/4 inches, or a little bit over 22 centimeters. And then for a height to the back of the neck, just shy of 4 inches or 10 centimeters. But you could, of course, make it taller. You can position it more upright, so that's really up to you. But as far as the Pachycephalosaurus goes, for a length, you are looking at about 7 3/4. No, actually closer to 8 inches, I would say. It's getting there, but not quite, or around 20 centimeters. And then for a height, again in the position that it's in, about 10 centimeters or 4 inches, just like the T-Rex. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Epic Attack set here. And you can see that these figures do sport a pretty decent size. They're definitely larger than they usually would be when it comes to these particular species. But if you are familiar with the Epic Attack figures, I don't feel like they're much different size-wise compared to the Dilophosaurus and Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptor we have out currently. And to show you that, there is the Epic Attack Jurassic Park 3 male Velociraptor that is out pretty much flooding Walmarts at this point. So if you have seen that figure, you are familiar with that figure, you're already going to have a pretty good idea as far as the size goes for these other Epic Attack releases, because they're pretty much the same size. And here is another comparison, this time showing off the size of the Epic Attack Pachycephalosaurus next to the Battle Damage Pachycephalosaurus. So this is like your standard Pachycephalosaurus size range when it comes to a Mattel release, but you also have the Hammond Collection version of the Pachycephalosaurus here as well. So you can see the Hammond Collection version is definitely a bit smaller, but your normal average version of the Pachycephalosaurus isn't too far off. The overall body size is pretty similar. I would say that the Epic Attack version might have a slightly bigger head, but outside of that, they're pretty similar in size. And then when it comes to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, you can see your standard average, juvenile Rex size range from Mattel, and you can also see the Hammond Collection version here as well. Again, showing off the fact that this figure is definitely a bit larger than what you usually see for this version of the T-Rex. And for one final comparison, just to show you that, again, this is probably the largest version of the Juvenile Rex we've seen so far, here is the Amber Collection version of this dinosaur as well, just to, again, show you that the Epic Attack version is definitely quite a bit larger. So this set of awesome brand new Mattel Jurassic World Epic Attack figures is another really cool release, and I've just become more and more of a fan of these Epic Attack figures as we go on. The only thing I'm not a big fan of, as far as like the Velociraptor, it had a really short tail. It was like obnoxiously short, very obviously short. But I think both of these figures look better when it comes to the tail length. The T-Rex and the Pachycephalosaurus have better tail length than we've seen on these figures in the past, so they are definitely an improvement as far as that goes. I also think the sculpts are really good. You've got lots of great detail throughout, really impressive fine detail. Even more impressive, I think, on the Pachycephalosaurus than the T-Rex, but both look really, really nice as far as the fine detail goes. You also have, on top of that, some pretty nice paint work. The paint apps are not bad by any means. Of course, as always, it would have been nice to see paint work running further out onto the tail, but what we do have here is still pretty good. And, of course, painted nails could have helped. But the figures overall have some nice sculpts, nice paint apps, and also some nice articulation. Specifically, the Pachycephalosaurus, I was excited to see, articulation in the neck, because we haven't seen that before when it comes to these type of Epic Attack figures. It would have been nice to see it in the T-Rex as well, but at least we have it in the Pachycephalosaurus. I guess they kind of make up for the lack of jaw articulation on the Pachycephalosaurus by moving the neck, whereas the T-Rex has jaw articulation. On top of that, I like the size. It's a bit larger than we usually get, or at least the T-Rex is. The Pachycephalosaurus is pretty similar in size to your usual Pachycephalosaurus release from Mattel, but the T-Rex is definitely a little bit larger, and overall I think looks really nice. And we have the very cool action feature, which I am a fan of when it comes to the Epic Attack action feature. I think that's really cool, really well done on the part of Mattel. So as a whole, both of these figures are awesome if you ask me, and definitely two figures that I recommend picking up. Again, if they ever start becoming more abundant, because so far they're not, they're pretty hard to find, and I haven't heard of anyone finding them in the United States yet so far. That's not to say that they won't show up here at some point in the near future, and I really am hoping that they do, because again, I'd like to buy another set of them just because I really like this Rex. But if you are interested, again, keep checking, Walmart and stuff, because Walmart here in the United States at least has the Epic Attack line. I think they have like the license for that line. I don't see them showing up anywhere else. So odds are if they do begin showing up here, that's where you'll find them. Otherwise, you can, try eBay or anywhere else. If you are outside of the United States, I unfortunately have no idea where you might be able to find these. But if you do encounter them, I definitely recommend picking them up. And also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.